So yesterday we talked a lot about what rounding is, why we do it, and we did some practice from what? This pictorial, right? How many of you remember it? The rounding pictorial, where we have some steps identified on what we could do, a strategy we could use to round numbers. So remember, we talked about if we had a question about rounding, we would have to determine the place that we're rounding to. We are going to look next door. And if it's 5 or more, we go up. If it's 4 or less, we let it rest. Yes? Thumbs up if we remember that. Excellent. Excellent. This pictorial is now on my website. So if you ever need it, it's always there for you. Okay, we're going to be talking a little bit more about this and using these strategies. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen so that we can see page 9 up on the screen and we can work from it. All right. All right, so this is what you all should be seeing down in your materials, your text materials. So please take a look up at the top, and this is where I will be reading from, right here. Allie records the time she spends doing homework. She rounds each time to the nearest 10 minutes. If Allie spends 37 minutes on her homework, how does she record this time? So when we are working with word problems, a fantastic strategy is something that I call the CUBES strategy, C-U-B-E-S, and that pictorial is also on my website. So in doing so, it is what we call a close read strategy, where we can take a look at the word problem, we can circle the numbers that are in the word problem, we can underline what the question is actually asking, we can go ahead and box any type of key word that will help our brain, and then we can eliminate or take away or cross out any words that we just don't need that are confusing our brains, and then we solve by showing our work. So C-U-B-E-S. So when using that strategy, if I'm going to circle the numbers, so this is the number I'm working with, right? I'm working with 37. That helps my brain. And then I'm going to underline the question. So what the question is asking me, it's rounding to the nearest 10 minutes. That's my question, right? And within that question, important word. I need to box that word. That's a key word. I am rounding. Rounds is super important. So things that really aren't important to the math in this question, things like the word homework. That word could be anything, right? It's not super important to this question. It gives us some context to work with, but it really won't. The word homework is not going to affect our math, is what I'm saying. So I can see by the marks I've made on this question that I know I need to round 37 to the nearest 10. That's what this is asking me. I need to round 37 to the nearest 10. That's it. That's all I need to do. Thumbs up if you can see that. There are a number of strategies that we could use, right? We could use a strategy from the rounding pictorial that we talked about, right? If we take the number 37, right? And then we, first of all, identify the place that we're rounding to, which is the 10th place. The next step is going next door to the neighbor. If it's 5 or more, I round up. If it's 4 or less, it rests. I can clearly see that that number in the ones place is 5 or more, so I am rounding up. So 37 rounded to the nearest 10 is going to be 40. Are there other strategies you could use? Definitely. There are definitely other strategies you could use. You could draw a number line, for example, right? You could have a number line and you could have 30 over here and 40 over here. And if you drew all of the, what we call tick marks, all of the little marks on a number line, like this would be 35 right in between, that would be a tick mark. We could clearly see that 37 would be closer to 40. We could clearly see that. Another strategy that we could use would be to look at a number chart, and I have it right here. It's a hundreds chart, right? And I'm going to show you how this works. This is another strategy. So if I project this, I'm going to be using this hundreds chart kind of like a number line. This is kind of like a little secret strategy, right? So, all right. So the number I'm looking at is 37. Yes, thumbs up, right? 37. I'm looking at this number here, right? I could take this whole line and kind of make that a mental number line, right? And I can clearly see that here, that 37 is going to be much closer to 40 than it would be to the 30. Can everyone see that? So I'm keeping my hundreds number chart. I'm kind of using it as a number line, as another way to visualize where 37 would be between those two tens, between 30 and 40. Can everyone see that? So if you take this number chart and you kind of compare it to my super, super quick number line, you will see, you will come up with the same answer. Many, many different strategies for rounding. Is there one, only one correct way or correct strategy? Of course not. Of course not. Could you bring out, for example, base 10 blocks and start putting in blocks? Of course you could. Absolutely. If you have those blocks, and you in fact have some of those blocks, although they're not cut out in your math binder, in the math section of your binder. Many different strategies, my friends. Okay? I want to expose you to many of them so that you can see it in different ways. How many of you are with me so far? Thumbs up if you are. Perfect. So please, everyone, turn to page 10. Please turn to page 10 in your math book, and it's going to look like this. Does everyone see that? It's going to look like this. This is page 10. And you can see on page 10 what this is here in the book, right? Looks like this. Can everyone see that? and they are asking you the same question about the number 37 and being able to picture it in this way and how it would be rounded to the nearest 10. Because here's our number 37, and we can clearly see that it is closer to 40. Okay? So same thing. I'm going to give you just like a few seconds to look at that and let that process and make whatever notes you'd like to on your math book. Okay, everyone. Now, if you could turn to page 11 in your math book, and it looks like this. This is page 11. And it looks like this. And we are going to talk all about this. Please follow along as I'm reading aloud. Now, you will use the problem from the previous page to help you understand how to solve a new problem involving rounding to the nearest 10. So again, going back to my cubes strategy, what is this asking me? It is asking me to round, and that's a super important word. I'm rounding to the nearest 10, right? I am rounding to the nearest 10. And this is the number that I'm working with. Now, the other information, again, that might give me some context, but these are the important pieces. The question's asking me to round to the nearest 10. Super important word here. Key word is rounding. That's what I'm doing here. That's what the question is asking me. 943 is the number I'm working with. Okay, now, this is what I'm going to say to all of you, my friends, and this is what I say to every one of my classes every single year. Math isn't hard. Math isn't hard. And I don't like to complicate math. But what is very important is that you learn to close read questions, because remember, math is a language. We need to use those reading strategies and answer the question that is being asked of you. Answer the question that is being asked of you. Many, many times I get students showing me beautiful math on their paper, but they're not answering the question that's being asked. So if I'm asking you to round this number to the nearest 10, what I don't need you doing is rounding it to the nearest 1,000. I need you to round it to the nearest 10, right? This is where our close read strategies are very, very important. Okay, my friends, so let's step through these questions. The number, and I'm on number 1, I'm sorry. The number 943 is between which two tens? Again, tens. This is the place we're looking at, right here. So, it's between which two tens? Are there strategies you could use? Definitely. Do students like to go to number lines? Definitely. Well, guess what? Here's a number line for you. Here is a number line. So, taking a look at my number line, which two tens does this number fall? Between which two? And I'm seeing, I only see a few of you, but I am seeing Adon's hand. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you. It was a little bit hard to hear you, but I did hear you. So for question number 1, The number 943 is between which two tens? Well, we can see from the number line. It is between 940 and 950. And so when we take it down to question number 2, it is asking us, what number is halfway between these two tens? What number is halfway between these two tens? So if we look at our number line, let's go back to that for a second. If we go back to the number line, we're going to see 940, right? 941, 942, 943, 944, 945. That is going to be the halfway point. That's our number line. It's going to be the halfway point. The next question is going to ask you, is 943 less than or greater than the halfway number? So when going back to our number line, 943 is here. So is 943 less than or greater than the halfway number? It is, of course, less than. It is less than. All right, question number 4. So based on all of this, do you round 943 up or down? Do you round it up or do you round it down? Going back to our pictorial, I'm seeing all the thumbs going like this. Yep, you round down. You round down. You round down. So, of course, my last question, what is 943 rounded to the nearest 10? So what is it? It is 900, since we're rounding down, 940. 940. I'm going to give you just a second to make sure you have all of that written down, and then we're going to come back together and talk for just a minute before we keep going. I'm seeing all of you working hard. Beautiful. All right, so let's come back together for just a minute. Now, my question for you is this. Moving forward, as we continue to round, which strategy are you comfortable with? Which one do you like to use? Do you like to use the hundreds chart? Do you like to use number lines? Do you like to use the pictorial? Or base 10 blocks? Which way are you comfortable? What strategy do you like? Ellie, what strategy do you like?
I like the pictorial.
You like the pictorial
strategy.
I'm glad it's helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Isis, go ahead.
The hundreds chart.
You like the hundreds chart, excellent. And CJ, my friend out in Scape, what works for you?
the pictorial.
You like the pictorial. Thank you for sharing that. Dylan T, what strategy do you like?
The number line?
Beautiful, thank you. So in the answers that you're receiving and that you're hearing, you can clearly see that students see things and process things and learn things differently. And this is why we like to offer you lots of different choices, lots of different options. We like to teach you different strategies because maybe what works really well for one student, another student may say, I think this makes more sense to my brain. And is that okay? Let's say if I were to give you a quiz and I were to say round 943 to the nearest 10. And let's say CJ used the pictorial, and let's say Dylan T used the number line, and I had Isis, the hundreds chart, for example. Are all of those okay? Would I look at all those papers and say, yeah, nice job? It's totally okay. There might be situations where I will say exactly what strategy you need to use. So you will need to be familiar with that, just so I can see your understanding of it, right? But generally, I'm about choice. And I want math to be fun for you, and I want you to do what you need to do to be successful, all right? So there is going to be more practice in the book that we're going to take a look at, and we're going to do that now, okay?